Hi everyone, and welcome to the SI2 webinar on root causes. My name is Sue Reynolds and I'm president of the American Student Achievement Institute. We hope you had a wonderful July and that you're coming back eager and ready to go. I was just mentioning before we started recording that our staff took some time off too, and I know we came back at it this week, and we're kind of eager to get started with helping schools. So here's what we'll be talking about today. It is a really packed agenda. So we'll do a couple of announcements. We'll do our typical review that we do with every webinar. And then today we're talking about root causes. This is the most important discussion. We think this is why SI2 schools improve at such a faster rate than comparable schools that don't work with us. And it's because of the focus that we put on root causes to help you discover the very pinpointed places in your school and community that you need to focus on to raise student achievement. So we'll do an introduction to root causes. We'll look at how we pulled together your root cause data. And then we'll walk you through how to conduct the discussions. So in the discussion, there's actually two parts to that discussion, and we want to kind of give you a heads up right in the beginning that it is a two-part discussion. The first part is just identifying what the root causes are, and then we're going to look at each root cause a little more deeply to see, is this something that's getting in the way of reaching your goals for all students, or is it just for some students, like your free and reduced lunch students or your boys or whoever? So we're going to find your root causes, and then we're going to drill down those root causes a little bit more. By drilling down those root causes and by really focusing and spending time to discover what those root causes are in your school, what we're doing is we're setting you up to be able to target your interventions in our next step. So when we get to interventions, we don't want those interventions to just be kind of, out like we're guessing what needs to happen. We really want them to be focused on concrete and specific root causes. So, okay. A couple of announcements. One is if you have a new principal in your building, or if you have steering team members that have turned over or new steering team members, we do each year an introduction for new steering team members and new principals. That will be held on August 18th at 3:30. And there will be a registration link in the August update, which you should get this week. So please make sure that if you are turning over steering team members or adding new members, or if you have a new principal, make sure they get registered for this webinar. We will be looking at just introducing SI2, talking about the terminology and the process, but specifically the point person tasks so that everybody knows their role. So we know that schools do have new personnel, and rather than the burden of explaining SI2 falling on you, we just thought we would do that for you. So, okay, and then one other kind of update is a terminology change. This is really nothing different. It's just that we've decided to give these tabs at the top of your process page a new names. So we used to call you a first-year school. We're now calling you a startup school. And then keep in mind that we have schools that stay with us for like over a decade. Really, actually today is our 20-year anniversary of the starting of ASA, and we've had schools that have been with us almost that long. So, so what happens after your startup year is that you rotate through the update years. So update 1, update 2, and update 3, and then every third year we do the surveys again. So after your startup year, you'll just rotate through these 3 tabs as you progress. So, okay. So, quick review. Just a reminder of your organizational structure. Your steering team who's listening to the this webinar and participating in the webinar. Remember that you're the process managers. There's the members, there's the tasks that you do, and you are the worker bees. And then just as a reminder, because we're doing SI2 very quickly this year because of some of the timelines with the Department of Education, we're not engaging the student body in the discussions this year. We will next year. And then we're also not engaging the School Improvement Council. We're having the steering team serve as the council, but we will add that in next year. Okay, so the process, we've got several parts that are complete now. We've got we did all the getting ready and collected all your data. We did the introduction. We did the pie in the sky, dreaming about what we wanted your school to be like, the visioning. Last time we met together, we talked about your goals. And you have now established some very broad primary areas for improvement, or PAIs. And then you've also created very specific SMART goals. And those SMART goals are what we're going to focus on today. Today we're looking at root causes. Whoops, let me go back. Today we're looking at root causes, and what we're trying to figure out is for each of those SMART goals, what's getting in the way of students being able to reach those goals. So here's where we are so far, and here's the products that we have. So we added one more product, the achievement goals, and so you're coming in with this work done and with these products ready to put into your school improvement plan. Okay, so root causes, we're going to look at a couple of things. Over the years, we've been able to identify common root causes, common things that get in the way of schools that aren't achieving at the level that they would like to. So we're going to kind of take you through those common root causes, and then also the other part of the data that you're going to look at is based on DOE's turnaround principles. So we're actually going to kind of look at all of that stuff and figure out what's getting in the way of achievement in the areas of your SMART goals. And then after we figure that out this time, then the next time we meet, we'll talk about your interventions, and that's basically the fixes. How are you going to fix those root causes? So we'll come up with some very concrete and targeted interventions. The step that we're doing this month, the root cause step, that is we think the most important step because it focuses those interventions. And then after the interventions are identified, then we'll do the prep. So we'll figure out what professional development do you need, what's your timeline, what resources do you need in order to make sure that those interventions are implemented with integrity and they're implemented fully and well. So, okay, so that's what's kind of coming up, but today, of course, we're talking about those root causes. So I'm going to jump into a introduction of root causes. First of all, just a very simple definition. So root causes are the things that get in the way of achievement. They're things that are blocking achievement in your school and in your community. So root causes answer the question, why aren't more students reaching our academic goals? What's getting in the way? We have to identify correctly those root causes so that then we can implement the right interventions. So a couple other things, and this is really key. So root causes may be general. And when we talk about a general root cause, what we mean is that this root cause is impacting all subjects, all courses, all standards. So an example might be poor attendance. If students have poor attendance, that's going to impact them in all of their courses. If your school is a school that has poor student discipline, that's going to impact all of your goals. I think I misspoke a little in the previous part. The poor attendance is going to impact all of your goals. Lack of student discipline will impact all of your goals. If your teachers aren't engaging students in their instructional practice, that's going to impact all of your goals. So some of your root causes are general because they impact everything. But what we have found is if schools only focus on those general root causes, it's not enough to raise student achievement. So we also will ask you to look at specific root causes. In other words, they're going to, if one of your goals is that you want students to learn about ratios, then we're going to say, okay, why aren't students learning about ratios? And then you might find some very specific root causes, like we don't teach ratios, so that's pretty specific. or are the teachers that are supposed to be teaching ratios in that lesson, they're using instructional practices that aren't really engaging. Or we teach ratios once and there's no extra help for kids that don't get it. Or when we're teaching ratios, students are, they're not engaged, they're not asking questions. So we want to look at very general root causes, and then we also want to look at very specific root causes. So root causes tend to fall within 7 areas. We call these the ASA elements of high-achieving schools. From our observation over 20 years of doing this, and also from literature research, we find that the common areas that schools have problems with is that there's a lack of high expectations for student achievement, there's a lack of curriculum rigor, lack of engaging instruction, lack of frequent classroom assessment, extra help, student guidance, or there's a lack of a learning environment. So let's look at each of those very quickly. We also have a document that you'll be able to find in our manual called the ASA Elements of High Achieving Schools. It goes into these a little bit in more depth. So first of all, high expectations. Here's the questions we're asking as we look at a school and as you look at yourselves when you start poring over all your data, your root cause data. Do educators, parents, community members, and students expect all students to succeed at a rigorous level? And if they don't, well, who has lower expectations? In which group of students do they have lower expectations for? So that's your data as you start to look at that will answer that question. Are people's expectations clearly and concretely expressed? A lot of times we have high expectations, but we don't do a good job at communicating those to students. And then the third one is, are our expectations purposefully communicated? There's a plan in place so that we are saying to every single student, here's the expectation that I have of you. So, so as we look at your high expectations root cause data, you'll be able to gain some awareness of how you might answer those questions. Okay, in rigorous curriculum, this is another area that you'll have data for. Has the entire curriculum been aligned with world-class academic standards? Are you aligned on paper? Most schools would say yes, but what about in instruction? Are you actually teaching to rigorous standards? What about an assessment? Are you assessing in the classroom rigorous standards? So are all students taught rigorous content? And in most of the schools we will look at, what we work with, there are students who don't have the opportunity to learn rigorous content. So are we encouraging all kids to enroll in rigorous classes? Do we have some prerequisites that keep some kids out of rigorous classes? Do students have funding, like for AP classes? Do students not take AP because they can't afford the assessment? Do students not enroll in rigorous classes because they're afraid of not doing well in those classes? So do all kids get a rigorous curriculum? And again, the data will help you to answer that question. And then do students and parents have a real-time means for understanding what standards the student has mastered? So, is there some way to communicate with students in pretty close to real time? On a weekly basis or whatever, you've mastered this content, but you've not mastered that content. So things to think about as you're looking at a rigorous curriculum, and again, the data that you look at when you start looking at reports will help you to be able to answer some of those questions. Okay, the next area of the 7 is engaging instruction. Do your instructional practices align with the school's world-class standards? Do they convey high expectations for all students? Do your instructional practices engage all students in learning? That's a big one. And the other big one is, do your instructional practices enable teachers to help students who struggle? In other words, as we're teaching, are we able to determine, oh, kids aren't getting this point, so we can reteach it? As we're teaching, are we also identifying students who need extra help? And as part of our teaching, as part of our in-class instruction, do we provide that extra help as part of our instructional practices in the classroom? So again, as we're looking at engaging instruction, these are the 4 areas that the data will help you make some decisions about. A frequent classroom assessment, I've kind of mentioned, are the assessments aligned with world-class standards? But the big thing is, are those assessments given for the purpose of helping teachers identify instructional strategies that aren't working? So teachers know, oh, that I missed the boat on that one. I need to figure out a different way to teach that because that didn't get across. And also, do your assessments, are they used to help students, to help identify students who need extra help? So, and then finally, are the classroom assessments followed by an opportunity for extra help for students who didn't get it? So, so we're really looking at how do we use in-class assessments to inform instructional strategy decisions and to help identify students who need extra help. Okay, and then extra help. Um, are students who need extra help or time frequently identified, and are they actively engaged in extra help practices? By actively, we mean it's not just voluntarily on the kids' part, but we've gone after those kids and said, okay, you need extra help, come in, let's figure out, let's reteach what you haven't learned. So do all students have access to extra help inside the classroom and outside the classroom? In a lot of schools we find that extra help is provided after school often when students who maybe have to go home to babysit their younger brothers and sisters or whatever, they're not able to attend. So do all students have access to inside and outside extra help? And one other thing that we like schools to think about is, do both low ability and high ability students have access to extra help and time? A lot of times it's just the low achieving students who get the extra help, who are involved in tutoring or whatever. But a lot of times, not a lot of times, much of the time, it's the high ability students who also need the extra help to master their AP content or their dual credit content or whatever, or their high ability student program content. So yeah, so we want to look at, is everybody getting extra help? Okay, in student guidance, this is another area that in high achieving schools we find that there's been a lot of attention paid to. So the questions are, do all students have an adult at school who's responsible for him or her? And the bullets there will give you some ideas of what that adult would be doing. But the key is that the adult would have no more than 30 students. So is there an advisor-advisee program or a homeroom program or whatever, so that every student knows that there's an adult at school that's responsible for them? And if I'm that adult and I'm only kind of looking over in being like the in-school parent of 30 kids or 12 kids, I can start to notice then when one of those students starts to fall through the cracks or something's just not going right with that student, and then I can engage. So we think it's really important to have the student guidance ratio down to, ideally 1 to 12. I wouldn't go over 1 to 30. And that means that those people, those mentors in the students' lives, or whatever we're advisor or whatever, that those people are working hand in hand with the school counselor, so that we're working together to be able to support students. Then, as part of this relationship, do all students have a career goal? Do they have a post-secondary ed goal? Do they have a savings plan for post-secondary? Are they earning the grades that align with their post-secondary goals? Do they talk with their parents at least annually, hopefully every week, but at least annually about their goals and plans? Again, in high-achieving schools, we find that these things tend to happen. And then in grades 8 through 11, do students have a high school course plan that aligns with their post-secondary ed goal? So if a student says, I'm going to Harvard, do they have or I'm going to a four-year college, do they have a high school course plan that's going to get them there? If they're saying, I'm going to a building trades apprenticeship program, do they have a high school course plan that's going to get them there? So, okay, so that's the guidance part, and then finally the learning environment. So in this element, what we're looking for is, does the classroom environment support learning? Is it safe both physically and emotionally? Is it quiet and free from distractions? Is there adequate technology to support student learning? And again, when you see your data in the learning environment report, you're going to get a lot of information that will help you make some decisions about that. The second thing in the environment that we think is really important is parent support for learning. So again, when you get this report, the data will help you see students' perceptions about whether their parents are involved and parent perceptions about whether they're involved in teacher perceptions. So, you know, our parents supporting learning. And then the third one is, does the community support learning? And there's a lot of it's really important, we think, that the community expresses its expectations for high achievement. And there's lots of different ways that the community can do that. One of which is to get involved with the school in designing curriculum to make sure that the curriculum is rigorous enough to support to enable students to be part of a global economy. And then the other just little things that a community can do to show that it values education. One sec, let me mute my phone. There we go. The community can also do things like sponsor scholarships, take kids on college visits, provide internships. I mean, there's lots of different things that community organizations can do too to convey to kids that learning is really important. So, okay. So those are the 7 areas. So now let's look at the data and what that's going to look like. So as you're pouring through the data reports, you're going to see data that is like we're seeing over on the right-hand side of the screen. So things like you'll find data that 7% of all students are absent absent more than 10 times during the year. And so then, as you're looking at this data, you might think, oh, that's too much. And so you have a root cause then. We are concerned about poor attendance. Next one, 40% of students refer to the office for disciplinary purposes each year according to school records. We are concerned about the lack of student discipline. That's the root cause. Next one, 67% of the students report that instructional practices are not engaging on the survey. And 37% of students report that they don't complete homework assignments almost every day. So then you're starting to think, we're concerned about student engagement. And then 53% of students report that extra help is not available at the school. So you might be thinking, oh, I'm concerned that extra help is an issue. So root causes, I like to always start them out with the prompt, I am concerned that, or we are concerned that. It's the things that you're concerned about that you believe are blocking achievement. So again, schools that improve tend to very carefully identify both general and specific root causes for every SMART goal, and then later we'll design interventions to address those things. Okay, so the question, as you're pouring through all the data today, the question is, why aren't our students achieving at a higher level? So we're looking at the data to help us determine that. We've talked about you're going to have these 7 reports. So there's one report for each of the elements of high achieving schools. And on that report, on each of those 7 reports, you're going to see responses to survey questions. So there may be one report that is about expectations, but the survey questions from the student survey, the teacher survey, parent, and community, all of those survey questions about expectations have been pulled off of those different surveys and put into this one report. And then also there are short answer questions that were answered by the steering team about programs in the school, what opportunities kids have in the school. And for the expectations report, those questions will be pulled out of that section of your input and put onto this one report as well. So you're going to see one report that says, expectations, but then just keep in mind that we've pulled the questions off of all the surveys and off of the short answer responses that have to do with expectations. We put them on that one report. And then we did the same thing with the curriculum rigor questions, the instruction questions, assessment questions. Okay. Okay. So here's what it might look like. So this is on the expectations report, and this is a real schools data, by the way. So we pulled off the survey questions, and the report will tell you what the questions were. So for the parent, it was I expect my child to continue his or her education after high school. For the community, I expect almost all students in the school to continue their education after high school. And if we look at this, we can see that, and this is a real school, that if we just look at the agree row, that 83% of the students agreed with that statement. 100% of the parents that were surveyed said that they expected their child to continue their education. Only 62% of the community and only 61% of the teachers. And so, you know, to me, if I were a teacher in this school or a parent in the school, this would be begging some questions, you know, because I'd be wondering, you know, the 39% that didn't agree, are those teachers encouraging kids to continue their education after high school? Are they pushing for rigorous courses so that all students can be prepared to continue their education after high school? This is very common, by the way, the data that we see like this. It'd be interesting when you see your school's data. Do you see a discrepancy between the teacher response to this and the student response? And again, you know, teachers, sometimes this number is low because teachers can see a lot of roadblocks along the way. But again, those roadblocks are your root causes. So let's get rid of those root causes, and then hopefully teachers will have more confidence that all students can continue their education after high school. So that's kind of how you look at the data, and each question, when you start to see discrepancies, it begs discussion. Okay, here are, again, from the expectation reports. Here are just samples of the short answer questions, so that this would be on the same report. What percentage of your ninth graders are enrolled in Core 40? 97%. 10th graders, 97%. 12th graders, we dropped down 10% between ninth grade and 10th grade. So again, this may beg, you know, discussion. Okay, so you know, listing schools that have prerequisites. Yeah, so again, this is the kind of data that you're going to see on those reports. Okay, so now let's get into the discussions. Remember, again, we said there will be two different types of discussions. So here are the two discussions. The first discussion is for each SMART goal, what is interfering with that goal? And we're going to look at the root cause summary report. We're going to look at all 7 of those reports. And the product of this discussion will be your root causes. And there'll be things like, we are concerned that students have poor attendance. Okay? This is a general one, of course. It might be, we are concerned that students don't get extra help for ratios, you know, if it were a specific root cause. Then we're going to go back and we're going to say, okay, now we know what the root causes are. But is this a root cause that all students have, or is it just for some students? Like for poor attendance, is it all students that have poor attendance, or is it just the boys, or just the girls, or just the third graders, or just the Hispanic students, or whoever? If we know that it's just a specific student group, then we can further target those interventions. We can make sure those interventions are really grasping the kids that they need to grasp. So, okay, so here's part 2 then. We're going to target possibly the root causes. So for each root cause, does the root cause impact some students more than others? And we're going to look at the root cause drill down reports. Those drill down reports disaggregate the data for each of the questions so that you can see, here's how boys answer the questions, here's how girls answer the question, here's how 4th graders answer the question, here's how 5th graders answer the question. We're trying to figure out what student group we need to focus on in our interventions. So we disaggregate the data 8 different ways: grade level, gender, race, ethnicity, lunch program status, so free and reduced or paid lunch, 21st century scholar status. This would start with middle school students and high school students. It's kind of interesting. IEP status for special ed or not. Parental college and typical grades. And I can tell you, if I were still in the schools, I would be really looking at these typical grades. I'd be wanting to see when students get D's and F's on the report card, what kind of root causes are there for them. And I'd be really focusing on those. Typical grades is really a great way to disaggregate the data. These grades are self-reported. When the students took the survey, they told us that they tended to get D's and F's on report cards, or C's and D's, and whatever. And then there's a tool called Create a Student Group. So let's say that you were really started to get interested in third grade African American males. You could create that as a student group to see how that student group had responded to the survey. So again, no requirement there, but you have that opportunity. And then the product is the targeted root cause. We are concerned that 6th grade boys have poor attendance. Then we know where to go with our interventions. That we're not targeting the whole student body. We're looking at 6th grade boys and how are we going to improve their attendance. So, okay. So here's how we do it. Root cause identification, step 1. You're going to print out a help sheet that looks like this. And when you print it, you won't be able to print it until all your SMART goals have been approved. Once the SMART goals are approved, you'll be able to print this, and it will list all of your SMART goals here. And then you'll use this sheet as you look through all the data. And if you see something that pops up as being concerning, I am concerned that, you would write that up in here. I am concerned that we have poor attendance. And then you're going to write the evidence or the data down here. Okay? So in other words, we don't want your root causes to be just, a guess out of thin air. We want you to be able to back that up. And if it's not data that we've provided for you, what other data are you able to look at, or what are you able to observe that has told you that this might be a root cause? Then after you put it in there, you'll say, like this for attendance, you're going to check off which of your SMART goals that root cause impacts. So if it were attendance, you would check off general, because that's going to impact all of your goals. If it was we don't provide extra help for kids who don't get ratios, then you would go down and find the specific goals that was an issue for. So, okay, so this is the help sheet. You're going to pour through, 7 different data reports, and each data report is kind of comprehensive. So we want to give you this help sheet to help you organize your thoughts as you're going through. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do then is you'll go to a page that that looks like this, and you're going to create a root cause report. So you'll go into the first thing is to tell us which year. And the most current survey year was 15-16, the survey you guys gave last spring. So make sure this says 15-16. You want all grades. You want to include the root cause questions, yes. And then the report we're looking for is the summary report with all questions. If you wanted to, you could split up the reports and just get one set at a time, but you might as well you're going to have to look at them all anyway. You might as well just click that. This will not give you any disaggregation. It just aggregates all the students in the building, but it will give you data that you can start to look at to find those root causes. Okay, so I've shown you a couple of examples. Here's an expectations example that we looked at before. Here's an instruction report. My teachers keep my attention when they are teaching. And then the parent version of that question, the community version, and the teacher version. And you can see that 85%, this is a real school's data, 85% of the teachers felt that they were keeping the kids' attention compared to 63% of the students. And interesting, 35% of the parents. But again, that just begs discussion. Okay, here's one for curriculum rigor. I am learning at school, what I am learning at school will prepare me to pass hard courses in 9th grade. This is obviously a middle school. And here we have some short answer questions. What percentage of your math courses are aligned with state standards? And we can see that the school has told us that 100% of them are, so that's good. So we've asked the school some questions. Those will print out. And then we've also, you have the survey information up here. So, okay. So I'll kind of talk through this. Here's, low attendance is a possible root cause. And here's the data that I've gotten from the reports. And then this is a general. No Algebra 1 extra help. There's the data. And then that's going to impact the specific SMART goal, 11th to 12th grade students passing Algebra 1 ECA. Okay. So the discussion is for all SMART goals, let me back up. After you have taken the time to review all the data and fill out these help sheets, then the next step is to have a discussion. And it might be that you want to ask people to go home, look at all the data, fill out the help sheet, and then come back for a second meeting. That would be a possibility where you would have the discussion. So we'll just have, you'll just have to figure out how you want to do that in your school. So the first discussion is for all SMART goals, what general root causes are interfering with the goals? And then for each specific SMART goal, what specific root causes are interfering with this specific goal? So if you have, 13 SMART goals, you're going to have 13 discussions. So so you can see this takes some time, this step. You have to have time to pour through all the data, and then you have to have the time for the discussions. We are going to give you, or have given you, a tool to help you have that discussion quickly. So here's how it would work. This is an Instagraph. You would have one of these Instagraphs in hopefully poster form for all goals, and then another one for each SMART goal. So if you had 13 SMART goals, that's probably way more than you're going to have. But if you did have 13 SMART goals and then all goals, you would need 14 copies of this poster. So okay, so the first thing you do is I'm going to check. This is a specific SMART goal, and it's a SMART goal for all 11th grade students passing Algebra 1. So I'm starting to have the discussion. First person who talks says they think a root cause is that Algebra 1 is not aligned with standards. Okay, so we write that on. Next person says, yeah, but I think it's that there's no in-class extra help for Algebra 1. Third person says, yeah, but there's also no outside of class extra help. And then somebody else says, and you know what, we're really not using frequent assessments well. And someone else talks about how many 11th graders are in algebra for the first time, and so they don't have time to repeat the course if they fail it, or to go through it at a slower pace. And then somebody says, and not only that, but students aren't motivated. And now we've got 6 possible root causes, and we're thinking instead of addressing them all, let's really narrow on maybe 1, maybe 2, or whatever of them. So here's how this Instagraph works. However many items you get here, you divide this number by 3, and that's how many votes people get. So there's 6 items. I'm going to divide it by 3. I get 2. So we say to everybody, please check the 2 of these things that you think are the most getting in the way for this specific SMART goal. So the first person comes up to the poster and they say they think it's numbers 1 and 2. The second person comes up and they think it's numbers 1 and 3. The third person comes up, they think it's numbers 1 and 4. The fourth person thinks it's numbers 1 and 3. So you can see how this works. We're starting to get a graph here. And in this school, then we might say, okay, we've got all these possible root causes, but it looks like everybody's pretty much thinking that we really, first step, need to make sure that algebra is aligned with standards. And then, you may discuss, and do we also want to put in some extra help? Depending on your time and energy, you may want to put in the second root cause, or you may just want to stick with this one. So yeah, so that's how an Instagraph works. You would have one Instagraph for all goals where you would look at your general root causes, and then you would have a specific Instagraph for each of your specific SMART goals. So, okay. That will very quickly narrow down your discussions so that you're not talking all day about each one of your SMART goals. Okay, so after that, so let me go back. Let's say, okay, we've decided we're going to have 2 root causes. We're going to have algebra is not aligned with standards, and there's no outside of class help. So, okay, now we're going to target those if possible. So in looking at the outside of class help, I might want to look at each of these drill down reports to see who's saying that there's not outside of class help. Is it my free and reduced lunch kids? Is it my, my paid lunch kids? And if you think about it, I mean, let's just use that as an example. Maybe there is outside of class help. For some reason, the paid lunch kids know about it, and the free and reduced lunch kids do not know about it. So that really helps us to figure out what our interventions need to be. It's not a problem of providing the outside of class help. It's a problem of marketing it or communicating it to all students, especially the free and reduced lunch kids. So as you're starting to look at that disaggregated data, it will really help you fine-tune where that root cause is. So there are, as you can see there, about 3,000 reports, and each of those reports is pretty lengthy. What I would suggest you do here is you say to someone who would be willing to look at the gender drill down report, and then just tell them, okay, click here and look at that to see, do we have gender gaps in root causes? Who would look at race and ethnicity? Who wants to look at free and reduced lunch? And it may be that someone who's really big on gender issues would say, yeah, I'd love to look at that data to see if we have gaps in root causes. And again, a root cause gap means that there's something that's getting in the way, but it's getting in the way more for your low-income kids. It's getting in the way more for your for boys or whatever the group is. It's getting in the way more for the kids who get D's and F's. They're finding an issue with that. So, and then if someone says, my interest is really in 8th grade African American boys, then say, okay, why don't you go in and create a student group and see if you can really focus on what's getting in the way of 8th grade African American boys. What's the issue there? So, okay, so when you've done that, then the discussion goes back to your root causes that you identified in the previous step, and you're saying, do we want to fine-tune them? Instead of saying, let me go back, instead of saying that there's no extra help available for Algebra 1, then you might want to, adjust this to say that 8th grade or 10th grade African American boys don't participate in extra help for Algebra 1. That will give you a way to fine-tune that root cause. Okay, so for each root cause, which student groups, if any, does the root cause impact more than others? And then the discussion is, do we need to target the root cause? So we are concerned that 6th grade boys have poor attendance. Not all kids, just 6th grade boys. And again, I hope you can see that will really help us to target the strategy or the intervention once we exactly know where the issue is. Okay, so Tina, I'm just going to pause here real quickly before we look online. Is there any questions that have come up that I need to address?
No, none so far.
Okay, I know I'm going through things really fast, and a lot of times this will, kind of gel a little bit, and you'll have questions tomorrow, and of course that's what Tina's here for, so she can answer those questions. Okay, so let's look online. First of all, when you go to the process page and you scroll down to the root cause section, for some of you, this is what you're going to see. We can't go on to the root cause step until your SMART goals have been approved, because the root causes align with your SMART goals. So for some of you, you're going to see everything's is in orange, and we've given you a notice over here that it's unavailable until your SMART goals meet criteria. So if that's the case, go back up to step 6 and finish working on your PAIs and your SMART goals. As soon as we've approved your SMART goals, all of these icons will become hot, and you'll be able to do the work. You will be able to see this webinar right away that we are recording right now, and you will be able to see the rubric items. Okay, so let's go out here, and I'm logged in as Demo High School. I'm on the Vision to Action process page, and I'm going to scroll down to step 7, which is to conduct the council discussion for root causes. The webinar we're doing right now will be linked here, and And then the first thing we want everybody to do is to review the SMART goals, so you kind of remember what those are, and you can click there and the SMART goal report will come up. Then we want to review the root cause summary reports for all students, and if you click here, that page will come up that we looked at on the PowerPoint slide, and you go down here and you're looking for summary report all students. Okay. And the other part here is this tool. If you open this up, that's the help sheet that you need. So remember, every time we put a tool in here, it's something that you need to complete the task. Then you're going to discuss the general root causes, and this is the Instagraph. We're going to discuss specific root causes. This is just another link to the same Instagraph. We're going to discuss targeting root causes. That will open up again the reports. Let me just open one of these. I don't know for demo high school if we have data in here, but let's just go look and see what we can see. No, we don't. At any rate, when you open those reports, it'll show you, like this report would show you boys versus girls, you know, the different race and ethnicities, free lunch, free and reduced or paid lunch, etc. Okay, so then we're going to enter our root causes. This is really simple. I'm going to click here on enter, and we're going to first note that we have two SMART goals here, and I'm entering root causes for these two SMART goals. So I'm going to add a root cause, and this little window pops up, and here's what you would type in. We are concerned that students don't have access to extra help for ratios. Evidence of the root cause, teacher's report, no extra help is available. This might also be data from the survey. It may be data from the short answer questions that are in the reports. So whatever evidence that you have that this is not just a hunch, but there's actually something that you can point to that made you think that this was a concern. Does this root cause affect some more than others? In this case, the answer would probably be no. But if the answer were yes, then all the student demographics pop up, and you can say, yes, this impacts third grade, male, let's say Hispanics, and then the last question is, which SMART goal does this significantly affect? And this is a general root cause, or I would say this, it's not a general, this impacts, oops, let me unclick that. This impacts that ratios SMART goal. Okay, so that's how you do that. Make this a little smaller here. And then at the end, oops, well, shoot. Let me go back. At the end, after you've got that all entered, then just hit save, and that would pop up. I just want you to see how that works. Yes, let's just say males, and master ratios, and save. Okay, and then here's the root cause, which I just named test. But whatever it was, it would be printed out there. Okay, so that's how to enter a root cause. Then one other thing that I wanted to show you here is that after you have entered your root cause, on this report, it lists each of your first of all, all of your goals, your general root causes, and then it will say what the SMART goal is and what root causes you have identified that are impacting that SMART goal. And as you read through this, if you think that there's not enough root causes, or not, it's not strong enough root causes to actually impact that goal after you fix those root causes, then you need to rethink those root causes. So this is a really good kind of summary report to help you think for each of your SMART goals, are you addressing enough of the right things in order to make that that data drive? So, okay. Then just a reminder that you need to, before you can put in the council discussion summary, you need to open that discussion. That's just kind of a thing you have to do in our system. So we're saying, are you going to have an in-person meeting? Yes, and then whatever the date is, location, and we want this discussion window to close. That will be the last time you'll be able to put in summaries. Send an invitation, and that just opened the discussion. Okay, and now I can go back and enter the summary. Okay, so in the summary, what we're asking you to do this time, because we really want to see what kind of discussion you had, please list the people who participated and the stakeholder group that they represented. Please describe the level of engagement. What did you observe that made you believe that people are engaged at this level? And please state several key points made during the discussion and who made those points, and then just save. So pretty simple, but we're wanting to just kind of get a sense from this report, this feedback from you. We're just wanting to get a sense of how energetic, if you will, the discussion was. Okay, and then finally, the last thing is submitting the root causes, but before you do that, make sure you review the rubric items. So on the on this, what we're wanting to see is that in root causes, that a significant number of root causes are specific, that they're not all general. There's root causes associated with each SMART goal, and those root causes held high promise for impacting the associated SMART goal. So we really want to make sure that there's a connection there. If we fix these root causes, we're going to see achievement go up. The root cause clearly states the situation or practice that's interfering with the SMART goal. At least one root cause addresses curriculum content, instructional practices, classroom assessment practices, and or extra time and extra help. These are what we call the big four, that schools that improve focus on these four areas big time: curriculum content, instruction, classroom assessment, and extra help. So we'll be looking for some really meaty work in those areas. And then finally, the root cause data provide evidence that the root cause exists. So it's not just something we've grabbed out of thin air, but we've got some data that supports our thinking that this is a root cause. So okay, and that is it. This is an area where the more times you do it, the better you get at it. It's also an area that takes some courage, I think, because basically what we're doing is looking at ourselves and trying to find out the areas that we're not so successful in, and that where we need to improve. And that's kind of hard sometimes. So it's an area that takes some courage. But we also think that the kids are worth that courage, that we know that when we look at ourselves and we find the areas that we need to improve, and then we improve them, the kids are going to be the beneficiary, and that makes it all worth it. So, but it's good work, and it's important. It's an important step. We opened up by saying that when you really spend time looking at targeting those root causes, figuring out what's getting in the way of achievement in your school, that's really where when we start to see achievement go up. So okay, one last thing is just looking at today's tasks. So we're entering your root causes. We're reviewing the root cause report. Then we're entering your discussion summary. We're going to check the rubric, and then we're going to submit the root causes. We've got about 3 weeks to get that finished, which I know is going to be pushing it. So, you know, we kind of, when we talked with you in June, we kind of talked about having these discussions already, dates already planned, so that you could just hit the ground running at this point. We'll be meeting with you again in just over 3 weeks to talk about interventions. And then we really need to get interventions started because you'll need a significant amount of time to explore interventions and get them all ready to go. So yeah, so we know 3 weeks is going to be pushing it. We've had plenty of schools though that have you know, really just gotten on it and had those discussions, looked at the data, and finish this work, and really for some schools in a week if you just hit it and, you know, have those discussions and get it done. So don't forget that Tina's here for you, and let me jump in with Tina one more time. Tina, questions?
There aren't any questions, but I think that one thing for sure, you're all going to be very pleased with yourselves if you've done a lot of prep work and got as much achievement data in as humanly possible, got as many surveys done as people did. Really looked specifically with those root cause surveys, because you're going to have this wealth of information now that you can look at, and you can really get some good work done at this point. This is the payoff.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Tina, and probably a thank you to all the root cause data point people, because you're the ones that pulled all this data together, got the surveys done, and, you know, put all the short answer questions in there. But this is, yeah, like Tina said, this is where, I mean, it's fascinating looking at this data to figure out what, you know, what kids are, what's getting in the way and for which kids, and it's really interesting. So one other thing that I forgot to say is don't forget that Tina is here to help you. She has been through this with her own school a million times, and don't forget that her school was our top gainer school for more years in a row than any other school. And it's because of how they found the root causes and then how they addressed them. But also Tina has now coached, you know, a whole bunch of schools. So she's good at looking at a school's data, you know, finding things maybe that you didn't find. Feel free to give her a call and just say, would you mind taking a look at, you know, this report and see if you see anything, or this is kind of what I'm finding, what do you think? Please use her. I can't tell you what a valuable resource she is all through this process, but I think right now is really, in last month too, looking at the achievement goals, I think I'd really, you know, use her a lot. So, and again, that can just be picking up the phones for the moment and saying, hi Tina, do you have a second? Or it can be, you know, sending her an email and saying, can we schedule an hour appointment or an hour and a half appointment to just really together really dig in. So her schedule is pretty flexible, so if we can work around your schedule, that would be great too. Tina, anything else to add before we close?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Welcome back to a new school year, and we'll talk with you all in just a few weeks when we start to look at interventions. Thanks, everyone.